Hello, everyone. With Genshin 6.3 right around the corner, Columbina is shaping up to be one of the most interesting lunar reaction buffers we've seen. In this video, I'll break down her early team synergies, best artifact options, roles, and an early build guide so you know exactly what to farm on day one. I won't be covering her kit here, since I already went over that in a previous video. Before I go ahead, I would appreciate a subscribe if you guys are interested in Genshin leaks or theory crafting. My next video will be about Columbina team calcs. Now that I have got that out of the way, let's start off with her playstyle and rotations. She mainly has two playstyles. Either you can use her as an on-field DPS character, or you can use her as a lunar reaction buffer. Her build will change according to her playstyle, so make sure to pick your side since I will explain both of the playstyles. First, let's start off with rotations for lunar reaction support. Usually all you would need to do is use your elemental skill first, and then elemental burst. It doesn't get any more simple than that. As for her DPS playstyle, first you would get all the buffs from other characters, and then, while you on-field Columbina, after you have activated her burst, you will use charged attacks to deal Lunar Bloom damage by consuming your Verdant Dew similar to Nefer. You can also do dash cancels to attack faster with her charged attacks, just like you can do with Nefer. Also, one more point that I would like to add before I explain everything else is that you will have 6 Verdant Dew instead of 3. The 3 diamond icons you see are Special Moonridge Dew. Basically, you can refer to them as Special Verdant Dews that you gain by having Columbina. This will be really useful for Columbina on-field teams and Nefer teams. Let's jump right into the actual build now. As for her artifact set, you will mainly be using 4 sets depending on what team you use for Columbina. You usually want a 4-piece set on her, and I will explain if you can use a 2-piece set too. First, let's talk about using Columbina as a support. Let's go over her new set. The new set is called as Morningstar. Morningstar provides 80 elemental mastery and up to 60% increase in lunar reaction damage if you are in Ascendant Gleam. You will use this set on Columbina, mostly in lunar crystallized teams and her wheelchair teams with Anefa. Just make sure to keep Columbina off-field so the buffs for this set can activate. As for teams like Nefer or Flynn's, you'll be using Silken Moon Serenade set on Columbina, and I will explain why. In Flynn's teams, you should put the new set on Anefa since you can get more value from it, and having Silken Moon on Columbina means you won't lose the Silken Moon set's buffs. You can also just keep things simple and still use Silken Moon on Anefa and new set on Columbina, but it will be less valuable. As for Nefer teams, usually Ano carried Silken Moon. Now that we are getting Columbina as her replacement, the only option is to put the Silken Moon set on her. If you put the new set on Columbina, you would lose the Silken Moon set buffs which are needed for Nefer. So that covers why you should use these 2 sets, which is Silken Moon in Flynn's and Nefer teams, and the new set, which is called the Morningstar in Lunar Crystallize or Wheelchair teams. There's another set you can use for off-field Columbina, but it's mainly for attack percent buffs instead of lunar reactions buff. It's none other than Tenacity of the Millilith. You can use 4-piece Tenacity if you are using Columbina as an attack buffer. She won't buff your lunar damage from this set, but it's still usable on her if you want to buff attack percentage instead. Now that we have covered up all her support sets, let's move on to her on-field DPS team. For on-field Columbina teams, there's pretty much only one set which I would recommend, and it is Night of the Skies Unveiling set, same as Flynn's and Nefer. The Night Sky set is mainly made for on-field DPS characters, and the stats you get from it are just as useful for Columbina DPS playstyle too. So I would recommend to go for the Night Sky set if you want to use Columbina as an on-field DPS instead of a support character. All of the 4 sets that I mentioned should be 4-piece artifacts, so you can gain all the buffs from the respective set. Generally, you want a 4-piece set on her, but for lower investment options, you can still use other sets, for example, 2-piece Tenacity and 2-piece Ferocious Glow for HP buffs. Or a 2-piece Morningstar set, which is the new set along with 2-piece Night Sky for elemental mastery buffs. Alright, moving on to what artifact stats you need on Goblet, Sands, and Circlet. First, I will talk about support Columbina, or you could say off-field Columbina. Mainly you want to go for HP percent on Sands, HP percent on Goblet, and crit damage on the Circlet. There are a few exceptions which I would also like to point out. If you are going over 35,000 HP with the help of your substats, I would recommend to switch out the HP percent Sands to an energy recharge Sands. You can go over 35,000 HP if you wanna, but it's not that useful beyond the 35,000 mark. So choose between one of them, depending on what your HP stat on Columbina is. Moving on to her on-field DPS team, you want HP percent on Sands, HP percent on Goblet, and crit damage on the Circlet. It's basically the same, but if you go over 35,000 HP with the help of substats, instead of energy recharge, you can prioritize elemental mastery Sands. Since Columbina's damage with her charged attacks is considered Lunar Bloom damage, you can go for EM Sands once you are at 35,000 HP mark. Now that I have told about the stats needed on Sands, Goblet, and Circlet, I will tell you all the minimum stats you should get on her for every category. For her HP, as I already mentioned, 35,000 HP is what you should aim for. As for her energy recharge, it really depends on what weapon you use. I will discuss more about this when I talk about her best weapons. But mainly you want energy recharge anywhere around 170% to 250% depending on the weapon you use. As for her crit rate, you get 15 crit rate from her kit and 19.4 crit rate from her ascension and additional 5 base crit rate. That's almost 40 crit rate by just having all of her ascensions. So you would need 60 crit rate from the artifact pieces. But if you are using Columbina as an on-field DPS, it gets even lower since Night Sky artifact set provides you with 30% crit rate while you are in Ascendant Gleam. So make sure to just not go over crit on Columbina, since it's quite easy to do so. As for the priority you should give to her stats, for support off-field Columbina, first priority should be energy recharge followed by her HP, crit damage, and lastly crit rate, since you don't need a lot of crit rate. For on-field Columbina priority is basically the same with the addition of Elemental Mastery being added after crit rate. So Elemental Mastery is not that important, but it's always good to get it on either DPS Columbina or even support Columbina. It's just more better on DPS Columbina by a slight margin. Moving on, let's finally talk about her best weapon options. She actually has a good free-to-play option, which I will tell afterwards, but let's start with the signature weapon first. Her signature weapon will be the best in slot for lunar reactions. She becomes a great sub-DPS with her signature weapon, but keep in mind that our one signature weapon will require more energy recharge than her free-to-play option. You can use this option for both on-field and off-field Columbina. You mainly want to go for this catalyst if you want to increase Columbina's personal damage, and if you already have good energy recharge through your substats on artifacts. Now, another 2 signature options that can be useful are Nouvelette's weapon and Nefer's weapon. Both of these weapons are mainly for Columbina on-field DPS, so don't use it for any off-field Columbina builds. Nefer's weapon will turn out to be a little better than Nouvelette's signature, since the Reliquary of Truth was already dedicated for Lunar Bloom with Nefer, and Columbina's charge attack are just similar to it since she also deals Lunar Bloom damage with her charged attacks. Moving to a free-to-play option, Prototype Amber can work wonders since the HP stat is useful and our 5 Prototype Amber actually requires less energy recharge than her signature. This actually should be your go-to catalyst for off-field Columbina, even over her signature. The only difference is that Prototype Amber doesn't have any other substat which is useful. This only benefits your HP and energy recharge. But it's still an absolutely solid option since you can use all the stats, and she also becomes somewhat of a small healer. I would use this over her signature if you have C0 or C1 Columbina. If you go for her C2, then Columbina's signature weapon will be more beneficial. Another option that I would recommend is the Favonius Codex. Favonius is slightly worse than Prototype Amber because it will mostly just behave as a battery, but you can still use it and is a solid option. But even with Favonius, you would still need more energy than Prototype Amber, so I suggest to get our 5 Prototype Amber as a free-to-play option. Next up, we have a Battle Pass option, and that is Sacrificial Jade. Now, this catalyst can be used for on-field or off-field both, depending on how you play. The buffs last for 10 seconds, but you only get the buffs when Columbina will be off-field for 5 seconds. So it's more of a quick swap catalyst for on-field Columbina, but you can easily use it with off-field Columbina without worrying about the time. Moving to an on-field Columbina DPS option, Black Marrow Lantern will easily turn out to be good for Lunar Bloom damage. If you mainly want to focus on dealing more damage and already have good energy recharge and HP stats on your artifact pieces, this is your go-to catalyst. But remember, it's only for on-field Columbina, where you are using her as a DPS. A few more options that are good are Aetherlight and Ashgraven. Both of these are event weapons, so most of us probably might not even have it. But if you do, these are good options too, but just remember they are not as solid options as I mentioned some previously. And finally, Thrilling Tales should be your very last option for mainly attack buffing. If you just want to maximize your damage from another attack scaling DPS, you can use it as an option. Alright, now what weapon I think is the best, you guys might wonder? In my opinion, for C0 off-field Columbina, go with Prototype Amber. Even if Signature does do a little more damage, the energy recharge for Signature weapon is quite high than Prototype Amber. But if you do plan to go for Columbina Constellations, her Signature weapon is a solid option at C2 Columbina. As for on-field Columbina, either use Columbina's Signature, Nefer's Signature, Black Marrow Lantern, or lastly, Sacrificial Jade. Just make sure to quick swap with Sacrificial Jade, since the buffs last only for 10 seconds. Now moving towards the main question, how much energy recharge should you have on Columbina? I will be talking about Columbina as the solo Hydro character being in the team first. Well, to start off, with her signature weapon on R1, anywhere around 220 energy recharge is what you should aim for. As for our 5 Prototype Amber, anywhere around 180 energy recharge is pretty good. Prototype Amber has the lowest energy required, and that is why it's good for off-field Columbina so much. As for Favonius Codex, 210 energy recharge should be pretty good. Just make sure to get it R5-2, so you get guaranteed particles. For any other weapon, the energy required is quite high. You can go slightly lower than my values, but it will be harder to get consistent bursts, especially in Stygian. For other weapons, you should most likely get 250 to 300 energy recharge. I know that sounds a lot, but honestly, without having her energy recharge near 250, you won't be able to run a lot of the other weapons. These energy requirements are for solo Hydro teams, so if you add more Hydro units, the energy recharge requirements will go lower. I mainly focused on Zibai's Lunar Crystallized solo Hydro team with Goro. to do these calcs and assumptions so you can go slightly lower with Flynn's and Nefer teams since they generate a lot more particles during their rotations, and you can also use Silken Moon set on Columbina in Nefer and Flynn's team, so you need lower energy recharge from weapons and artifacts. Alright, moving on to the team comps for Columbina. First, I will just clear something out. Columbina will likely fit in most of the teams as long as you pair her up with a Nefa. Without a Nefa or Llama, you can use her in limited teams like Lunar Crystallize for Navia. Llama is needed for her most on-field teams. In future, we might get more units like Sandrone, who might be also good, but let's talk about the team comps, which are good as of now. The best team comps so far for Columbina are of course her lunar teams, which means she'll be good in Nefer, Flynn's, and Zibai teams easily, so you don't have to worry about it. I will first cover up all the support off-field Columbina team comps, and then follow up with on-field Columbina. A good Nefer team can be Nefer herself, along with Llama, Columbina, and Nahida. This team is viable if you have C1 Llama. Without C1 Llama and Prototype Amber from Columbina, there are no sustain options in this team, which is the downside. You mainly want Columbina on Silken Moon, Llama on 2-piece Elemental Mastery, and Deepwood set on Nahida in this team. If you don't have Nahida, you can use Sucrose instead. The artifacts will change, and you should put Silken Moon on Llama, Deepwood on Sucrose, and the new lunar set, which is Morning Star on Columbina. This team makes the rotations a little bit weird since you do have to switch to Sucrose in between Nefer's charged attacks, so you can refresh the Deepwood set. But if you need a sustain option since you don't have C1 Llama, Kuki Shinobu is a good option. As for the artifact sets for this team, you most likely want to use 2-piece on Llama, Columbina on Silken Moon Serenade, and Kuki on Deepwood set. Moving towards Lunar Charged, which is Flynn's teams. As for Flynn's teams, it's your basic Lunar Charged teams, which consists of a Nefa and Sucrose. All you have to do is just replace Ano with Columbina. The artifacts will change since a Nefa will work better on the new set, Morning Star, while Columbina should be put on Silken Moon and Sucrose on Viridescent Veneer. You can also use Fischl instead of a Nefa, but I generally don't recommend Flynn's without sustain from a Nefa. If you do plan to use Fischl instead of a Nefa still, the artifact sets for the team should be Fischl on Silken Moon, Columbina on the Morning Star new set, and Sucrose on Viridescent Veneer. Moving towards few new teams that we will get to see for the brand new reaction Lunar Crystallize. Firstly, Zibai will of course be the DPS in the meta Lunar Crystallize teams, followed by her dedicated support Aluga. As for your third slot, you can put Columbina, and for the fourth slot, you can either pick Goru or Zhongli. First, let's go over Goru's team. If you decide to use C6 Goru instead of Zhongli, your DPS will be higher, but I would recommend getting C1 for Columbina, since you get a shield for Lunar Crystallize teams with the help of her C1. With that said, you can still use Columbina on C0 if you know how to dodge most of the attacks, since you still have a little healing in the team. The sets you should use in this team are Zibai on Night Sky, Columbina on the new set, Morning Star, Aluga on Silken Moon, and Goru on Instructor. If you do have Zhongli and decide to use him instead of Goru, this team will have a lower DPS compared to C6 Goru team, but it has more sustain. So if you don't get C1 Columbina, I do recommend this team. Your artifact sets are the same on everyone except Zhongli, who should use 2-piece HP set. If Zhongli gets future buffs for Liyue, like Veni did, he might become the best in slot and act as a good sub-DPS if the Zhongli pillar from Elemental skill didn't break. There is another option, which is replacing Zhongli with Chiori, and this will actually be the best in slot for Zibai teams. But honestly, it's not worth it since C6 Goru is almost the same. Shiori C0 is just slightly better by a really small margin. Moving on to some final team options for mainly off-field Columbina teams. We have Nivea Teams, where Columbina can be used to enable Lunar Crystallize in her teams. This team is a little higher investment since you need Columbina, Farina, and Xylonin to complete the whole team. This is another solid team, but it likely won't hold up for long since the DPS is quite low compared to Zibai Lunar Crystallize. You want to have Nivea on Nighttime Whispers artifact set, followed by Farina on Golden Troop, Xylonin on Cinder City, and finally Columbina on the new set Morning Star. If you love playing Nivea, this is a solid option. Finally, the very last team for Columbina off-field playstyle will consist of Anefa and Columbina. Basically, I am talking about any wheelchair teams. You can basically put both Columbina and Anefa in a lot of teams, and they are guaranteed to wheelchair that team near about 90k DPS. I won't talk much about these teams since they are very flexible and vary, and have a lot of character options who can be used along with Anefa and Columbina. Mainly you just want Anefa on the new set, and Columbina's set changes according to the team between Silken Moon and Morning Star. These were all her off-field teams. Now coming on to last few team options for Columbina, we have her DPS teams. Her DPS teams are really solid options if you don't have Nefer, but still want to play Lunar Bloom. One thing I want to point out is that to play Columbina as a DPS, having Llama is almost a must because of how good Columbina gets by having Llama to support her in DPS teams. So we already have our second slot for team. For the third slot, you can use Nahida, and as for fourth slot, Nilo is a solid option. This team is slightly worse than the C6 Ano team I will talk about next, but if you want to play Nilo along with Columbina, this should be your go-to team option. You want Columbina to be on the Night Sky set, followed by Llama on Silken Moon, Nahida on Deepwood, and Nilo on any two-piece HP artifact set. And as for the Ano team I mentioned earlier, you want to have Ano and Anefa as the third and fourth slot. This team will be better than Nilo team in terms of damage, but remember that Columbina is taking up a lot of Nod Cry supports in this team, so I do think it's much better to use the Nilo team for something like Stygian, so you can save up Anefa for Flynn's. Anyway, you should keep Columbina on Night Sky here, followed by Llama on Silken Moon, Anefa on Morning Star set, and finally Ano on Deepwood. That about sums up all her team options as of now. My final thoughts on Columbina is that overall she is a great unit for Nod Cry teams and Lunar Crystallize teams even without Nod Cry characters. Just remember that most of her non-Nod Cry teams, if they are not Lunar Crystallize, you will most likely have to wheelchair her along with Anefa. If you are still confused about anything I discussed in the video, let me know in the comments below. I will soon upload the Columbina team calcs and their rotations in the video, so everyone can have a clear idea on how good their specific team is. I won't keep you guys waiting any longer. See you all in the next one.